Imagine a secret that has been whispered through the corridors of history, a riddle so profound that kings, mystics, and philosophers alike dedicated their lives to unraveling it. They called it the Great Work. To most, it was the dream of turning lead into gold, a primitive attempt at material wealth. But to those who truly understood, the gold was never metal. It was the soul itself. The Great Work, the magnum opus, was not about the transformation of matter, but about the transformation of being. It was the sacred process of purifying the human spirit, of dissolving illusion, and of reuniting the fragmented self with the divine essence buried within. Hidden behind cryptic symbols, coded manuscripts, and allegories of fire, water, and stone, the alchemists described not chemistry, but spiritual alchemy. They spoke of the philosopher's stone not as an object to be possessed, but as a state of consciousness, the moment when the finite merges with the infinite, when the seeker becomes the truth itself. And yet, this secret was never meant for the unprepared. Its language was veiled to protect the sacred from the profane, to ensure that only those willing to burn through illusion would ever find its light. Because the great work demands more than study. It demands death and rebirth. Not of the body, but of everything you think you are. Every failure, every shadow, every attachment, all must pass through the fire of transformation. For the lead of ignorance cannot be transmuted without the flame of self-awareness. In this journey, you are the alchemist. The elements are not in your laboratory. They are within your mind, your emotions, your very soul. And when you begin to refine them, when you learn to distill chaos into clarity, desire into purpose, fear into love, you approach the true meaning of the great work. In this exploration, we'll uncover what the alchemists were truly teaching, how the great work became the ultimate path of spiritual evolution, and how the ancient symbols of gold, mercury, and salt conceal a roadmap to the awakening of consciousness itself. This is the real alchemy, and it begins within. To understand the great work, we must first return to an age when science, art, and mysticism were not separate, but one. Long before the modern world reduced alchemy to superstition, it was considered the highest form of wisdom, the royal art. From the temples of ancient Egypt to the Hermetic schools of Alexandria, from the mystical monasteries of Tibet to the secret chambers of medieval Europe, the alchemists spoke the same hidden language, a language of transformation. Its origins stretch back to Hermes Trismegistus, the mythical sage said to have lived thousands of years before Christ, the father of both alchemy and Hermetic philosophy. In his legendary writings, the Corpus Hermeticum, Hermes declared, "As above, so below, as within, so without." It was the ultimate key, the understanding that the universe is a mirror, and that whatever happens in the outer world is a reflection of the inner one. To change one's reality, one must first transmute the self. This is the philosophical foundation of the magnum opus, the esoteric lineage. The Egyptians referred to alchemy as the art of chem, named after the black fertile soil left by the Nile's flood. The same blackness that symbolized the prima materia, the raw, unrefined essence from which all transformation begins. It's no coincidence that alchemy itself comes from alchemia, the art of Egypt. To the initiates of the mystery schools, this black matter represented the unconscious, the chaos of the human soul before awakening. The alchemist's task was not merely to manipulate matter, but to refine this inner chaos into light. Just as a seed must die in the darkness before it can bloom into gold. Later, in the Greco-Roman era, this sacred science spread into Hermetic and Gnostic traditions, intertwining with mystical Christianity. The alchemists began encoding their wisdom into allegory, the stone of the wise, the elixir of life, the divine marriage between the sun and the moon, each a metaphor for the stages of spiritual awakening. The forgotten philosophy, when the medieval alchemists of Europe, like Paracelsus, Nicholas Flamel, and Basil Valentine, wrote of transmutation, they were not obsessed with metal. They were describing the inner alchemy of the soul, the transformation of ignorance into wisdom, of fear into love, of mortality into eternal consciousness. In truth, the philosopher's stone was never hidden in the mines of the earth. It was hidden in the chambers of the human heart. This is why their texts were so cryptic, filled with drawings of dragons, kings, and celestial fires. Only those who had begun the process within themselves could read their symbols correctly. To the uninitiated, alchemy was madness. To the awakened, it was revelation. The suppression of the great work. As dogma and materialism took hold, the deeper meaning of alchemy was forgotten. Church authorities dismissed it as heresy. Scientists dismissed it as fantasy. But those who truly understood, the Hermetic philosophers, the Rosicrucians, the mystics of the East and West, continued their work in silence. They knew the secret, that the great work was never about gold in the furnace. It was about light in the soul. Through the centuries, this wisdom became the hidden current running beneath the surface of civilization, influencing everything from Kabbalah and Sufism to Jung's depth psychology and modern quantum mysticism. And even now, its symbols remain all around us, in art, architecture, and myth, waiting for those with eyes to see. Because the great work is not history. It is a living flame, one that still calls to those who sense there is more to existence than flesh and shadow. It whispers, "Transform yourself, and the world will follow." So, what exactly is the great work? The ancient alchemists described it as a process of transmutation, the art of refining base matter into something pure, radiant, and divine. But when read through the lens of the inner path, this base matter isn't lead or metal, it's the unrefined human self. The fears, desires, ignorance, and attachments that cloud the spirit. These are the impurities that must be burned away. And the fire that accomplishes this is awareness. Just as the alchemist in his laboratory uses heat to separate gold from slag, the seeker must use the flame of consciousness to separate the eternal from the temporary within himself. The alchemical journey, then, is not linear. It's a cycle of death and rebirth again and again, through 4 great stages known as the opus magnum. The 4 stages of the great work. Every true alchemist, whether they wore robes or modern clothes, passed through these sacred stages. Each stage represented a profound shift in consciousness, a refinement of the soul's vibration. 1. Nigredo, the blackening. The first stage begins in darkness. Here, the seeker descends into the depths of their own shadow, the chaos, the wounds, the unhealed pain. It is a symbolic death, the breakdown of false identity. In psychological terms, it is the confrontation with the unconscious. Nigredo is uncomfortable, terrifying even. It's when you realize that the world you thought was solid is illusion, and that the real battle has always been within. But this darkness isn't punishment. It's purification. The blackness of the prima materia, the fertile soil from which new life is born. As the Emerald Tablet says, the Father of all perfection in the whole world is here. To find gold, one must first enter the earth. 2. Albedo, the whitening. After the darkness comes light. Albedo is the stage of illumination, when clarity begins to dawn. Here the seeker purifies their thoughts and emotions, separating truth from illusion, washing the soul clean of the stains of ignorance. It is symbolized by the white dove, the moon, and the water of life. In this stage, you begin to feel the subtle energies of being, intuition, synchronicity, presence. The ego begins to dissolve, replaced by the quiet awareness of the observer within. This is when the alchemist first glimpses the divine nature of reality, the inner gold beneath the layers of self. 3. Citrinitas, the yellowing. Often forgotten in modern texts, Citrinitas represents the dawning of wisdom. It is the stage when illumination becomes integration, when the light begins to express itself through life. The alchemist no longer seeks truth intellectually but begins to embody it. In the symbolic language of the great work, this is when the sun rises. The inner masculine principle awakens, bringing will, direction, and radiant purpose. It's a moment of clarity when opposites begin to harmonize, when spirit and matter start to unite, preparing for the final transformation. 4. Rubedo, the reddening. The final stage, the great union. Rubedo is the moment when all polarities are reconciled, spirit and matter, light and dark, masculine and feminine. This is the birth of the philosopher's stone, the perfected consciousness that transforms everything it touches. It is symbolized by the red phoenix, the king and queen united, the rose blossoming from fire. The alchemist who reaches Rubedo no longer seeks the divine. They have become it. They are the living stone, the bridge between heaven and earth, embodying the eternal truth that all is one. The true gold. When the alchemists said they could turn lead into gold, this is what they meant. Lead is the heavy, dense consciousness of ignorance, trapped in matter, bound by fear. Gold is the pure light of awareness, radiant, untarnished, eternal. The process of turning one into the other is not a physical experiment, but a spiritual evolution. The furnace is life itself, every challenge, every heartbreak, every victory. Through each trial, the soul is refined, and the seeker moves one step closer to the great work's completion. As the alchemist perfects himself, he perfects the world, for the two are reflections of each other. This is the hidden meaning behind "as above, so below." The great work is not just your destiny. It is the destiny of all creation, to remember itself as divine. If the first part of the great work describes the stages of transformation, the second reveals why it all exists, the secret hidden in plain sight. The great work is not only a path of self-purification, it is the unfolding of cosmic intelligence through human consciousness. It is how the universe awakens to itself. The alchemists taught that everything in existence is alive, not metaphorically but vibrationally. Every stone, plant, planet, and person carries within it the same divine spark, what they called the anima mundi, the world soul. When we engage in the great work, we are not merely refining our individual being. We are harmonizing with this universal soul. We become conscious participants in the divine experiment of creation itself. The secret of the philosopher's stone. The greatest mystery of alchemy was the philosopher's stone, a symbol that has been misinterpreted for centuries. To the uninitiated, it was a mythical substance that could grant immortality or turn lead into gold. But to the true adept, the stone was the perfected self, the union of opposites within the human being. It represented the complete integration of body, soul, and spirit. In esoteric philosophy, these correspond to salt, mercury, and sulfur, the three pillars of alchemy. Each one reflects a layer of consciousness that must be harmonized. Salt, the body, the form, the vessel. Mercury, the mind, fluid and ever-changing. Sulfur, the spirit, the fire of divine will. When these three are perfectly balanced, the result is the stone, the awakened human, the divine embodied in matter. It is not something you hold, it is something you become. The alchemist becomes the very bridge between heaven and earth, a living synthesis of creation, the marriage of the sun and moon. Another secret teaching speaks of the sacred marriage, the mystical union of the sun and moon. This represents not celestial bodies, but the dual forces of existence, the masculine and feminine principles, light and shadow, reason and intuition. Most people live divided between these poles, swinging endlessly between logic and emotion, control and surrender. The great work seeks to unite them, to dissolve the illusion of separation. When the opposites are reconciled, something miraculous occurs. A third force is born. This is the divine child, the eternal awareness that transcends polarity. In that moment, you are no longer the seeker of truth. You are truth itself. The paradox of alchemy. The great work teaches one of the universe's most beautiful paradoxes, that nothing truly transforms until it is first accepted exactly as it is. You cannot purify what you reject. You cannot transmute what you refuse to see. This is why the alchemists worked with the prima materia, the raw, chaotic substance of creation, because they understood that divinity hides within imperfection. The blackness of Nigredo was not evil, it was the womb of light. In the same way, your pain, your flaws, your darkness, these are not enemies to be destroyed, but lead to be transformed. Your suffering is not proof of failure. It is the fire that makes you gold. The alchemist does not escape the world, he sanctifies it. He does not flee from matter, he spiritualizes it. He does not fight darkness, he illumines it. This is the secret the old masters guarded, that heaven is not elsewhere. It's here, when seen through awakened eyes. The hidden message. The great work was never meant to be accomplished in isolation. Every soul who walks this path adds light to the collective transmutation of humanity. When one awakens, they raise the vibration of the whole. That is why alchemy has always been encoded in art, music, and myth, because those who carried the flame could not speak it openly. They hid it in the very fabric of human culture, waiting for those with the eyes to decode it. Today, the same work continues, not in secret laboratories of stone, but within the inner chambers of consciousness. Every moment of awareness, every act of compassion, every insight that dissolves illusion, these are the ingredients of the modern great work. You are the alchemist. Your mind is the vessel. Your life is the furnace, and your awakening is the stone. It's easy to think of alchemy as distant, an art lost to cryptic manuscripts and forgotten sages. But the truth is, the great work is alive in you, here and now. The laboratory is not made of stone walls and brass instruments. It is your own mind, your emotions, your choices. The furnace is life itself. And if you know how to use it, every experience, joy or suffering, becomes an ingredient in your transmutation. Let's explore how to live the great work in practice. 1. Observation, the fire of awareness. The first tool of the alchemist is not a flask or a crucible. It is attention. Transformation begins the moment you truly observe yourself without judgment. Sit quietly, breathe, and turn inward. Notice your reactions, thoughts, and emotions as if you were watching sacred chemistry unfold. Do not label them as good or bad, just see. When you witness anger, fear, or pain consciously, you are applying fire to lead, beginning the slow, patient process of turning density into gold. The key is presence, awareness that sees but does not cling. This is your sacred fire. 2. Purification, the water of emotion. After awareness comes purification. In alchemical symbolism, water represents the washing away of impurities, the gentle dissolution of what no longer serves. In practical terms, this means allowing yourself to feel without resistance. When emotion arises, do not repress it or analyze it. Let it flow through you like a river cleansing the soul. Tears, silence, and solitude, these are your alchemical waters. Each time you honor your emotions, you dissolve part of the old self. As the Emerald Tablet says, separate the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross, gently and with great ingenuity. This is the art of purification, gentle, honest, and sacred. 3. Integration, the air of understanding. The next step is to translate what you've purified into understanding. Every experience, no matter how dark, carries a hidden gift, a symbolic teaching. Ask yourself, what is this emotion or challenge teaching me? What quality of soul is being forged through it? Patience, courage, compassion, detachment? When you begin to see meaning in your suffering, transformation accelerates. The dense becomes subtle, the heavy becomes light. This is citrinitas in practice, the dawning of wisdom. 4. Union, the earth of manifestation. Finally comes integration, embodying the truth you've discovered. To complete the great work, knowledge must become being. The alchemist who only studies but does not live what he learns remains in Negrito. Transformation occurs when understanding flows into action, when your thoughts, words, and choices align with your inner gold. This is Rubido, the reddening of the soul, the union of heaven and earth within you. Practice it in simple ways. Speak truth, even when uncomfortable. Create beauty, even in small acts. Offer kindness, even when unseen. Treat every encounter as part of the great work. When you do this, the stone begins to crystallize within your being, not as a concept, but as presence, peace, and radiant power. Living as the alchemist. The real miracle is not in changing lead to gold, it's in realizing there was never any lead to begin with. Everything is divine substance, awaiting recognition. When your awareness becomes luminous enough, you see that the great work has already been done. You are simply awakening to it. Every thought you purify, every act of love you choose, every shadow you transform, all of it ripples through the unseen realms. Your personal awakening contributes to the collective transmutation of humanity. This is how the alchemist serves creation, not through grand rituals, but through conscious living. The great work, in the end, is not something you complete. It is something you become. In the end, the great work is not a story about gold, nor a tale of hidden laboratories or forgotten elixirs. It is the oldest spiritual allegory ever told, the journey of the human soul returning to its divine essence. Every trial you face, every emotion you endure, every darkness you enter is part of that work. The universe refines you the same way the alchemist refines matter, through pressure, heat, and time. And just like in the alchemical vessel, nothing is ever wasted. Every failure becomes a teacher. Every wound becomes wisdom. Every fall becomes fuel for your transformation. When you awaken to this truth, life itself becomes sacred. The mundane turns mystical. You begin to see the hidden symmetry in chaos, the sacred geometry of your destiny unfolding. You start to understand that the philosopher's stone was never out there. It was always within, the radiant consciousness that perceives, purifies, and unites all things. The great work is the art of remembering that you are both the alchemist and the gold. The ancient adepts knew this secret, and they encoded it in symbols so that only the worthy could uncover it. Because the truth cannot simply be told, it must be lived. Each person must enter their own furnace, face their own shadows, and emerge reborn in light. When you look back, you will realize it was never about changing the world outside. It was about awakening the world within. So the question now becomes, are you ready to begin your own great work? To take the raw material of your life, your pain, your joy, your imperfections, and refine them into consciousness, wisdom, and inner gold? Because the moment you say yes, the alchemical fire ignites. And from that point forward, nothing, not even the smallest moment, is ordinary again. Visita interiora terrae, rectificando invenius occultum lapidem. Visit the interior of the earth. By rectifying, you will find the hidden stone. The hidden stone is you.